Well, today we continue to expose and destroy techniques of the religion of political correctness to enslave you. If you don't watch, then subscribe and share. You are clearly on the wrong side of history, which puts me on the right side of the future. Confused? Well, what's new? Hey guys, it's God's Comic Brad Stine, and you know what? The most obvious purpose of the phrase, "you're on the wrong side of history," is to get you to conform to the latest leftist trends so you don't find yourself standing up for something the rest of the culture ends up disengaging from. They want you to be forward-thinking, like only they are, and progressive in how you view the state of culture and traditions. But notice, the very word progressive implies something that they can't justify, that the way they see the world and how it must conform is in fact progress. Progress from what? How do you know what you want the culture to become is progress, since you can't know the future? See, it's all speculative, based on a utopian vision that cannot be justified. You see, one of the great attributes to history is it can inform us. It has already done the dirty work and the heavy lifting by proving its value in real time. History allows us the power to be a sage in being able to compare different points of view and actually observe which one worked well. Why do cultures maintain traditions and norms and moral absolutes for generation after generation? Why? Because history has proven that it works, that these traditions are good and strong and gives us a foundation to rely on based on, irony of ironies, history. So the leftists actually cheat when they use the phrase "the right side of history" because they're proclaiming a fact that isn't actually true and hasn't happened yet in the first place. You see, every time someone wants to change a cultural convention, they have to be gambling that the change is going to pan out, and over time, history will prove them right, but history's in the past. The left's desire for change is in the future. So every time you hear the phrase "right side of history," remind yourself you're listening to a lie. Literally, it's not history until it's over, not what is forthcoming. So let's look at some historical moments and see if they were on the right side to give us a perspective. For example, there was a time when slavery was permitted in the United States, when the Supreme Court ruled that separate but equal was the law of the land. So the Supreme Court was establishing what would, for a time, become our history, and the majority of Americans accepted it. But there were a vocal few Christians, as usual, who specifically believed slavery was wrong, and they spoke out against it, irrespective of the fact that the majority of Americans disagreed with them. In other words, the abolitionists were on the wrong side of history, literally. Yet, in retrospect, they were more moral than those that shouted them down. And who shouted them down, you might ask? Well, obviously the closed-minded Republicans and their history of bigotry and slavery and whatnot. Oh, wait a minute. My mistake. The slaveholders and promoters were Democrats. Now that isn't my opinion. That's not me getting political or disparaging someone who thinks different than I. No, it's even more notorious than that. It's actual history. No wonder the left demands history be redefined as to what the future should be. When you actually look at history, you discover the real racists in America, historically, were Democrats, or what we would define now as leftists, because they demanded you conform to their point of view, or they'll kill you. You see, the Judeo-Christian idea that men were created in the image of God was an ancient historical idea that became imbued into the Western milieu. You see, history had shown that given time, that perspective would bring about a worldwide change to how minorities and the disadvantaged were perceived and treated. History had already staked its claim, and those who wanted to vote against the majority were on the wrong side of history, even though they were morally correct. Are you listening to this? Those who were the status quo and allowed for slavery were the progressives that wanted it enshrined into our fabric that slavery would continue, and those that disagreed were on the wrong side of history. One of the left's main strategies that you must be aware of is they always hold you accountable to a standard they never apply to themselves. You're a bigot, which is wrong, and I'm going to enforce your inability to operate that way by being a bigot towards your point of view. Now, am I saying that Democrats today are evil and today would want slavery? No, just the opposite. They now live by the idea of a egalitarian culture and actually are driven by the concept that everyone should be treated the same. What they don't understand, and this is a true statement again, folks, not an insult, is the very idea of equal dignity to all humans. It's a Christian idea that they've absorbed without acknowledging the source, which is God. They hate Christianity because it demands we conform our behavior, whatever that is, to God's rule. So they want Christianity eliminated from Western thought, not realizing that the very ideas they worship, equality of human beings, comes to the very religion they despise. Because they have no obligation to God that created these ideas, they can justify censoring, hating, destroying the very people who follow the creator of the idea they worship. Notice the left will always follow creation, but never the creator. They'll worship the environment, our home, if you will, but despise the architect. In the end, though, we all die, face God's judgment. If there was ever a time you do not want to be on the wrong side of history, it's then. This is God's comic, Brad Stine, and history has proven PC-free is liberty. The last thing you people want to be is on the wrong side of history. How do you keep that from happening? Go like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Brad Stine Has Issues. I need as many people on that as possible so that we can keep these episodes coming and keep you on the right side of history, which makes you in the right side of the future, which just makes you right. You can thank me later, but go subscribe now.